Call this meeting of the Chadron City Council to order at 6 p.m. and invite everybody present to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As required by Section 84-1412, subsection 8 of the Nebraska statutes, notice is hereby given that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted for your examination on the wall inside the door to the City Council chambers. May we have roll call, please?
Miles Bannock.
Present.
Keith Crocott.
Here.
Mark Werner.
Aye.
Cheryl Welch. Here. George Klein.
Here.
All right, I move to approve the agenda, but remove items G and J.
All second.
Okay, we will be removing the items for a lien, which is no longer going to be levied, and change in policy that we are no longer going to have to consider because the related event is being delayed. May we have roll call on the agenda as amended?
Bannon.
Yes.
Crocott.
Yes, ma'am.
Werner.
Aye.
Welch. Yes. Klein.
Yes.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
All right. On our consent agenda this evening, minutes for our previous city council meeting, also our treasurer's report and water report, as well as our usual fire department membership update. We also have some correspondence from Panhandle Public Health District regarding the outbreak of coronavirus. This is something we wanted to speak to just briefly tonight. Distribute information, give some resources for people, because there is a lot of conflicting information. We encourage everybody to go to the city website, chadron-nebraska.com. There's a link to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That they have direct information there on what's going on with coronavirus, updated information, talking about some of the things that you can do to protect yourself and your family, anybody in your life who is vulnerable, some of the guidance there. There's also been news from the state, from the governor's conference today, talking about recommending against gatherings of more than 10 people right now, which this gathering is more than 10 people, so nobody cough. It is really important that people follow the social distancing rules, wash their hands, avoid touching their face, basic precautionary efforts to slow the spread of coronavirus. Anybody from the council want to speak to this?
I guess I'd like to just add, I would like to add that the reason we're taking these precautions now is we're trying to protect the most vulnerable in our country, in our state, and in our community. It struck me pretty hard last week because there was an individual who was tested for coronavirus, and I'd spent time with them a few days prior to them being tested. I had to make a very difficult decision, and I canceled a trip to visit my father, who is in the highest, most vulnerable population. He has COPD. I then also had to cancel a trip to celebrate my aunt's funeral because there would be too many older people there. And that's what we implore everyone to think about. We all need to come together and take this seriously, because if we don't, the vulnerable are the ones who are going to suffer. So we implore everyone to please try to social distance. It's not easy, but we need to think about 6 feet. 6 feet as we look around this room is what we need to do. Thank you.
Another resource for information, of course, is to go directly to Panhandle Public Health's website. That's pphd.org. They have information there. And again, this is, as Cheryl said, we need to be prepared. We need to be ready. We need to know what's going on and how to protect ourselves, but there's no need to panic. There's no need for fear. There's no need for hoarding. We don't anticipate any shortages of food supplies. However, I do have a few notes here that I'd like to share tonight for people If you are worried about what's going on, obviously children are home right now. Schools are closed for the next 2 weeks, possibly longer, if they decide to close for longer. If you can't work, if you are ill, whether it's coronavirus or otherwise, and can't go into work, that can put you in a situation very quickly where you are in danger of running out of food or other household supplies. And so I wanted to make note of some resources for people that you can reach out, get to, and find some ways to support yourself, support your family during this time when things are very, very uncertain in terms of your economic situation. There's a lot of people in this town who are always close to the edge, and I think that that's important that we come together as a community, and we know that we will. We know that we can come through this. It's just a matter of supporting everybody along the way. Western Community Health Resources, it's wchr.net or 432-8190. They have a Community Essentials Pantry, which if you're running short on some personal hygiene items or food, call ahead, ask them if you can come and use it. There's not any application process for that. They also have the Commodity Supplemental Food Program. For those who are able to qualify for that, you can contact WCHR for more information there. We talk about people with children, people with young children especially, who are not yet school-aged. They can use the WIC program, Women's, Infants, and Children program, for help with formula, food, and other supplies for their household. You do have to enroll in that as well. Contact WCHR. Northwest Community Action Partnership has a lot of resources available. I won't go through exactly everything, but if you have children in Head Start or Early Head Start, they will be distributing food to their families as well as some other items. Contact your person with that organization for more information. They also have a weatherization program, whereas if you're home now and something happens with your furnace, your heating, they will be able to help people. They will prioritize furnace repair and replacement until it's safe to do other work. NCAP also has the Extra Helpings Food Pantry. It's emergency food, and you must be income eligible. For more information on that, call 432-3393. And for more information on all of this, go to ncap.info, as in NCAP as in Nebraska Community Action, or Northwest Community Action Partnership. They also have a homelessness prevention program that you can get more information on by calling 747-2200. RSVP is operating the Feed a Hungry Senior program. I don't know if they're doing food delivery right now, what the operation status is there, but if you're curious about it, 432-2734. There are several churches around town who do have food banks or pantries or other options for getting food. The Emmanuel Lutheran Church has one, 432-5408. The Catholic Church has their bread basket with weekly distributions on Tuesday mornings. Closer to home, I believe is still serving for now. That is open to everybody, weekdays from 11:30 to 12:30 at the Masonic Temple at 365 Main. Grace Episcopal Church has a food pantry as well. Call for information on that, 432-2229. I think it's really important to have these resources out there and to make people aware, because a loss of income for many people in this town is much more an immediate and pressing concern than getting coronavirus at the moment. A lot of people who are young and healthy, but living on the edge of poverty would be in real big trouble if they ran out of food and had no income versus having this disease. So again, encourage everybody to be safe, follow precautions, social distancing, wash your hands, avoid gatherings of people more than 10. Just be very careful. And like I said, we'll come together, we'll see this through, and encourage everybody to support folks in need in our community. Anything else from the council?
Thank you, Miles.
If not, moving forward, our first item of business tonight, I'd like to invite Deb Collier to the podium. Have our monthly update. Oh, I apologize. Thank you.
Consent agenda.
May we have roll call on the consent agenda?
Bannon.
Yes.
Crofut.
Yes, ma'am.
Werner. Welch.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
All right, Deb, what's the latest from NMDC?
Well, the latest is I'm preparing to probably cancel a board meeting this Friday. This has been sort of a moving target, and of course, several of us were on a conference call at 4 o'clock this afternoon and heard from Panhandle Public Health reiterating things that CDC has said, things that the governor has said and asked and requested, and I do think it's really important that we show leadership and are willing to self-quarantine if necessary, miss out on some personal events and that sort of thing, as my husband and I also had to do this weekend, in order to show everyone that we are all going to comply with this, because the results of not doing that, in the world previous to the coronavirus, there was quite a bit of activity in the NNDC office just before the end of the year regarding some potential business offerings or projects, prospects. That has cooled. I don't know the real answer to that. I could blame it on lots of things, but right now we only have 1 or 2 active projects in the file. NMDC is moving forward with its effort to replace the revolving loan fund revenue source. We have submitted and held one meeting with the LB 840 committee, a request for funds to be able to continue with our revolving loan fund. We are preparing a document that the LB 840 committee requested. We will get that prepared with our attorney and provide some additional information, and hopefully have something back in time for the council to consider maybe at the second meeting in April. I have also spent not a great amount of time, but a little bit of time researching and putting together an application for a grant through the Dawes County Travel Board relative to our downtown plaza. That will be heard April 7th by the Travel Board, unless that's more than 10 people. I guess I'm assuming that we can at least have a conversation about that. I've had quite a few calls recently, everything from Heartland Expressway construction to manufacturing options to the most recent today was inquiry about a certain amount of square footage to do a business, and each one of those calls was obviously unsolicited, they just came to our office, and it just shows that there's a lot of people out there yet making positive steps to move forward. They're thinking optimistically. They're looking at opportunities for themselves as well as their businesses, and we are always a little bit surprised at the number of folks and the kinds of things that come to our office, but just shows once again when you've had a couple things fall through, or you've had a week where you've not had a lot of activity in your office, now all of a sudden there's a half a dozen phone calls, and it kind of goes in cycles like that. So I wanted to share with you that there are in fact still business opportunities. There are folks out there looking at doing some things, and we are standing at the ready to assist them. The final thing I was going to mention is the Nebraska legislature, of course, also decided today to suspend the rest of the session, at least for now. Our best information from 2 different lobbying firms is that they will reconvene long enough to pass the budget, and that may be all that gets accomplished in this biennium. There are 2 ways that we could move forward with what we believe are 2 critical pieces, that is property tax relief, as well as re-implementing or putting in new guidelines for what we refer to as business incentives program. The governor could call a special session and have the senators come back, but in absence of that, both of those 2 pieces that we've been working on for several years now will essentially die and would have to be reintroduced. We as an organization, the Nebraska Economic Developers Association, along with I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of hours put in by the likes of Senator Mark Coulterman and John Stinner and some of the gentlemen and women from Lincoln who believe in this, we are not likely to let it just die. there will be a renewed effort at some point, because frankly, if Omaha cannot attract business and Lincoln cannot attract business because we don't have the proper incentives in place and ideas and progressive attitudes, I'm not sure how western Nebraska will proceed. So I'm one of those that believes that a rising tide raises all ships, and that we as an organization and a community and a state have to stand together in this effort as well. So we'll continue to work on that. I know the Heartland Expressway Association group is trying to decide if anyone can take the time and can make the commitment to get on a plane and go to Washington, D.C. in April. Again, you're not able to visit your senator or your congressman right now either, so it doesn't make any sense to fly to Washington right now. But they are scheduled to go the week of April 20th. I don't really have anything to report on that except to say that we'll have a meeting held by conference call this Thursday, and if anyone is interested in potentially going along on that trip, council members, elected officials are encouraged. If you are interested in learning more about what that might mean, I'm more than happy to sit down with you one-on-one and share what it is that we've been doing the last 10 years that I've been involved. Because as an organization, as a member of the organization, we draw pretty heavily on representation from our membership, and that includes the elected officials from Chadron as well. So that option is open if you're interested. Give me a call. We would pay for the airline ticket and the lodging while you're there. So if it's something you're interested in doing, this third full week of April, let me know. I'm not going to be able to go, so. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Deb, I did have a couple questions. First, you had mentioned that a traveling attorney was looking for office space.
Yep.
And did you send them to County Commissioner Stewart?
I certainly did.
Awesome.
And I've not checked to see if he ever followed up with Jake or not, but it sounded to me like he was extremely interested in that, because he only needed office space maybe once every couple of weeks.
Right. So that's a wonderful opportunity.
It is.
I'm just wondering how we're promoting that and advertising it. Thank you. You had mentioned that for the Heartland Expressway Association, there's an opening on the board. What does that entail?
It entails attending the board meetings monthly. Generally speaking, it's the third Thursday of the month. We try to have them at 10 in the morning. We intentionally move them around the Panhandle so that we are in the communities along the route and not just always going to Scottsbluff or Alliance or whatever. So we have a schedule made out usually a year in advance. So it's probably, just to be safe, 11 meetings a year. Occasionally, the board also attends things like the Highway Commission. If they should happen to meet in the western part of the state, we go to their meetings and just to show our presence as the association. We also have had opportunities to go to the legislature and testify. We've had meetings with the governor. And then, of course, we also are part of the Ports to Plains Alliance, which is the national organization, and in that regard have gone to D.C. At least once a year for the past 10 years. So time commitment-wise, if the meeting's in Kimball, that's a fairly long day. Mm-hmm. But sometimes they're in Chadron, sometimes they're in Alliance, sometimes they're fairly close by. Given the Scottsbluff, Gearing, Tarrytown center of things, they're in the valley pretty often.
Okay. Well, as a full-time working teacher, I guess that just doesn't work.
Well, and
thank you.
Yeah, and we do appreciate the challenge it is for an elected official who also has a full-time job to get to everything that you're asked to go to. I appreciate a couple of opportunities where council members have made the effort to come to an annual meeting. One of our meetings of the year is a little bigger deal, and it's an annual meeting, and we work hard to get some additional folks to come to that. But yeah, it is tough. the mayor of Terrytown is about the only mayor we can count on being there.
Well, I did have a question about OB 720, but I think I can ask you.
Yeah, darn it, it's,
Right.
I have a real bad feeling that that's kind of at the bottom of the priority list now,
Yes,
so,
okay.
sort of a
On
moot,
property tax.
a moot point, yeah.
Anything else? All right, moving forward in our agenda this evening, thank you, Deb. At 6:20 PM, we will enter into a public hearing regarding a liquor license application for Far West Restaurant. And Cassie Barrera is here to join us and talk about this. Chief, you have a few words to say?
Well, Mayor, Council, I'll let Cassie talk real briefly, and then we'll talk about the discussion afterwards.
Cassie, you just want to outline a little bit of what you're planning to add to Far West?
Yep, so we just want to add a liquor license to our business, just like for on sale only, so beer and wine, just to offer with food. We've had a lot of customers ask us, basically, if we have any, and we've lost some business due to not having it, so we've been open a year. So we just kind of thought that maybe we would try it and see if it's something that would help our business improve a little bit, and then, of course, add to the community, I guess, to that, so.
And how is business?
It's doing well. Of course, we have our ups and downs of time, but for the most part, yeah, it's doing really well. It's our second business for my husband and I. Our other one is in Harrison, Nebraska, so it's just kind of like it's our second one, so it's, yeah.
Work the kinks out, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, no problem. Anything else? I don't.
Further questions from the council? Chief?
I just want to remind, I think we have a couple other manager applications, but, obviously this is a license application. Cassie's going to be responsible for what goes on under this license, so I think it's important to understand the responsibility of having a liquor license. When I look at the application, I don't see anything in this application that I would where I would make a recommendation not to move this forward, so I would recommend that you approve this. So I think I've been in and ate at the restaurant. I think it's probably going to be beneficial for them to have this license as well. Those two things usually come hand in hand, liquor and an eatery, so I'm sure she'll do just fine. Do you have a license in Harrison? I didn't ask you that.
No,
you don't.
we don't. Not right now, anyway.
I can vouch for her. She's my next door neighbor.
What does she have on you?
I was going to say the same thing.
Hopefully nothing.
Anything else from the council? As this is a public hearing, we'll invite anybody present to come forward and introduce yourself and speak to this item. We'll give everybody a moment to come forward if there is somebody who so chooses. Okay. We will end this public hearing at 6:23.
Introduce resolution 2020, TAC 20, and move for its adoption.
I'll second that.
Cheryl gets the second, Keith doesn't get anything. Okay, resolution 2020-20 is to approve the liquor license application for Far West. Any further discussion from the council? Hearing none, may we have roll call on resolution 2020-20?
Bannon.
Yes.
Crowfoot.
Yes, ma'am.
Werner.
Aye.
Wells.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes. Introducing resolution number 2020-21 and move for its adoption.
I'll second that.
And resolution 2020-21 is a manager application for Corey Olson in connection with Ridgeview Country Club. Invite Corey forward, and I understand Judd is here as well as the president of the board. Is that right? Yes. President of the Ridgeview Country Club board. Chief, you have any remarks to start us off?
I'll let Corey introduce himself.
Yeah, Corey, just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what's going on.
It'd be easier if you asked a question. I mean, other than
How long have you lived in Chadron?
I came to school here in '95 and haven't left. So I guess the town's been nice enough to bless me to keep me here, so. And I don't know, I think I've been golfing for the last 15, 16 years, and I thought this would just be a fit to manager job was open, so I applied.
Very good. Questions from the council?
And the reason that the previous manager left and he needs to fill those shoes, is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, obviously.
And I think he's been on the job, what?
1 month tomorrow, so.
Anything from the council?
No.
Chief, anything you want to say?
No, I talked to Corey, he needs to attend some training, some liquor training. I think he'll get that done, given he's only been on the job for a month. That's probably pretty difficult for him to do, so I told him I'd help him out with that. The State Patrol also offers that, so I would recommend approval.
Okay. May we have roll call on Resolution 2020-21?
Bannon.
Yes.
Crumpet.
Yes, ma'am.
Warner.
Aye.
Welch.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Introducing resolution number 2020-22 and move for its adoption.
I'll second that.
Resolution 2020-22 is another manager application, this time for a new business, for Stephanie Williamson for City Slickers. Terry Hinn, as the owner of the new liquor store, is here as well.
Good evening, Council. My name is Stephanie Williamson. I've been a resident of Chadron for about 8 years, and I've worked with Terry for about 3 months now.
And we're getting close. As you all know, this has been a long project for me. A lot of hard work, a lot of money invested. I wish you would have stopped by, had a chance to stop by. Miles did, Cheryl did. We've got something, honestly, Chadron can be proud of. It turned out nice. As far as manager, Stephanie, I take my hat off to her. She's a very hard worker. She's pretty tight with the staff and stuff. As far as training and stuff, she's been through alcohol training online. We've had Russ Knight, who's with Dietrich Distributing. He's also with the legal counsel of the State Liquor Commission. And he came down and visited with us, gave us a class for about an hour and a half. Jarvis came down for an hour. So, I'm going to make sure our staff and Stephanie as well, we're on top of things. We will know what we can do, what we can't do, and how to keep everybody safe.
And then, in addition to just being a traditional liquor store, this includes some things that you do have to watch more carefully, right? Like samplings, you have the tap room, you can consume on site, not just a traditional liquor store.
Right, and that's why we'll card when they come in the door. You must be 21, and there's signs all over. You have to be 21 to stand.
Just as you would in any establishment like a bar, where you have to show an ID to enter. Questions or discussion from the council?
I guess I was caught off guard. Do you have samples?
Well, what we'll do is probably once a month we'll do sampling. Basically, you come in, pay a fee. You can try a certain wine. We'll do wine maybe once a month, and maybe do a bourbon or something like that. Just some way to offer people to get a taste of something instead of buying a $100 bottle of wine.
Sampling versus samples.
Yeah, samples are illegal.
Yes. Just go the old Sam's Club route. Okay.
So, Terry, one thing that when you had first come in front of the board, and I expressed my concern regarding the proximity of your liquor store to your pawn shop. So I was just wondering what are your thoughts? When you were in front of us before, you had some thoughts. Could you share those with us again?
Yeah, my thoughts is, number one, I had a pawn shop right next door to a bar in Rushville for 15 years, and there was no problems. Right now, you have a liquor store right next to a check cashing place that charges higher interest rates than I do, so I don't think, there's nothing to worry about, to be honest with you. If anything, our hours are different. We don't even open till 10, but we're open till 11, so I don't see it being a concern at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions or discussion from the council? Chief, you have a word to put in?
Yeah, I think I sent you a letter here at your last council meeting about what Terry has done there. I would encourage you to stop down and take a look at his operation. I think he's done a really good job. I would agree with Terry. I'm unconcerned about the proximity. I think I know Terry. I know the rest of the licensees in town. I mean, they would have just as much of an advantage to go pawn something or get a check cash to go to some other licensee. All of our licensees do a good job. So I don't expect that from Terry, but I would encourage you to stop down there and see his operation.
And to be honest with you, our website came up today, citysuckers.com, take a peek.
Thanks.
So,
I appreciate you opening the door, because I got
Well,
there as
thank
you were
you.
locking it. So
Yeah,
thank you for
you're
giving me a
welcome.
tour.
other than that, I would recommend approval.
Okay. May we have roll call on Resolution 2020-22?
Bannon.
Yes.
Crumpet.
Yes, ma'am.
Werner.
Aye.
Welch.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Introducing resolution number 2020-23 and move for its adoption.
I'll second that.
Resolution 2020-23 is to place a lien for outstanding utility charges against 502 West 2nd Street. I'd like to speak to this just briefly before we get into it and call for a vote. I would like to apologize for city staff. We had some meandering discussion on this last time that I should have stopped. It was inappropriate for us to discuss that action the way we did, to call into question city staff. And I don't feel that discussing these lien items is appropriate, and I would request that in the future, if we have any question or issue with it, that we resolve it before the meeting or have a motion to table the item so that we can consider it at a future meeting. I think there was unintentionally some disrespect for city staff that we, as a council, I think would do well to avoid, because they do a very good job for us, and it's, I don't think smart to have that kind of discussion in a public meeting. That said, anything on this item tonight? Hearing none, may we have roll call on Resolution 2020-23?
Bannon.
Yes.
Crumpet.
Yes, ma'am.
Werner.
Aye.
Welch.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Moving on tonight, we have a discussion item to talk about Chadron Community Hospital property located on the 800 block of Moorhead. We had a memo in our council packet from the city manager. And Greg, you want to kind of outline the terms of the discussion here?
Yeah, so in early March, it was requested by the interim CEO to have a meeting to discuss potential opportunities that the city might have related to the vacant Chadron Community Hospital building and land located there on Moorhead Street. During that discussion, there was a request to see if the city was interested at all in the use of the vacant building and land. After that meeting, there was a discussion with staff, and from that meeting, it was determined that there was really not an identified need for the use of the building and the land at this time. From that discussion, we also reached out to PAD to determine if the availability of the grants to complete a Phase 1 assessment, similar to what was done for the state maintenance charge, was still available. And at this time, those are still available for either the property owner and or the city to apply for those grants to complete that assessment. From the early discussions with the hospital, it doesn't sound like they have completed the full assessment of that property. Based off of the discussion, if the council wishes to move forward with the additional discussion on property acquisition, there could be potential budget implications associated with purchasing this location. Also, if the council directs staff, there could be minimal time implications associated with helping the hospital complete the application for the grant dollars. And it's really not a very onerous application. It's a pretty quick application to get that submitted. So from that discussion with the interim CEO, I told him that I would bring it forward to the entire council for consideration and open that up for discussion at that point. So
our outcomes here, whether or not we're interested in the property and and building, and then whether or not we're interested in having the Phase 1 assessment completed, correct?
Correct.
And do they have a disposition on whether they want to be the grant applicant or not?
There's really no discussion other than that we would follow up with PAD to determine the availability and opportunities to make that application.
Okay. Open it up for discussion from the council.
Well, I had a question. What would the Phase 1 assessment of the property and land tell us?
So what it would do is they would actually go into the building and do basically a visual assessment on that to determine what environmental hazards are within that building, i.e. asbestos, lead, mold, those types of things that would have to be remediated either prior to renovation and/or demolition.
Okay, so it's a visual, okay.
And does that include anything on the land itself? Do we suspect anything of like a brownfield nature that would be there?
Not that we're aware of, but, as a, old hospital, they would, potentially look at any type of land contamination associated with potentially mercury or some of those other type of, items that may be, on the land itself. So they would actually go through and, go through the history of that facility to see if there's any potential of, land contamination with it.
So we'd have a fairly good idea of what would need to be remediated on both the land and the building.
Correct.
Comments from the council? Is anybody?
Well, I was wondering, with your option 2, that there's no interest in the property, but to move forward with the grant, why would we? Well, either way, we'll need to find out what is in that property, right? If there are any hazards.
I don't know that there's a strong case against having the Phase 1 assessment. If anybody wants to make it, I'll listen, but.
I think it makes sense to do so myself.
I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, the only argument is, should we facilitate it, or should we just make the hospital do it? But it has no cost.
I'll recognize Deb real quick. She had some comments she wanted to make.
Yeah, I not only have spent a lot of time on the PAD board, but have also actually helped write one of these applications for the Phase 1 environmental. The Department of Environmental Quality, whatever they're called now, allows municipalities to ask for this to be done, whether you have a grant from PAD for brownfields or not. And essentially what they do, Cheryl, is they research all of the history on the property. They actually come out, they hire an engineering firm to come to look at and potentially test ground and that sort of thing. And why that's really important, whether you purchase it or not, is that when we market that, either for a new business or you break it up into, you tear it down and you break it up into lots for housing or whatever, anyone that wants to come in and develop that or build on it is going to ask, is there any potential of an environmental issue? Much easier for the hospital and us to help them market that and get it back on the tax rolls at a more equitable amount so that they're actually paying higher taxes than having a vacant building sit on it. It's just kind of one of those almost expected things nowadays in the development world. And this would literally be maybe a couple of hours of somebody's time. And that's what it would amount to in terms of the city assisting with the application. And I'm not making any judgment as to whether or not the city ought to move forward and try to get a hold of the property, although I don't think that's a bad idea, because I think it's very marketable, particularly if the Phase 1 shows that there's nothing there.
Right, it's such a lovely spot.
It is a really nice neighborhood. It's a nice location.
I was going to ask you too, Deb, so that you feel like this could be, with all of the ducks in a row, marketable property for business?
Oh, yes. Well, I don't know so much about commercial.
Yeah.
I personally think it needs to go back to either single-family dwellings or duplex. I don't know if there's enough space parking-wise and that sort of thing to do a multifamily project there, but yes, I believe it. It could very well be sort of a jump start. If the hospital's willing to let that go at a price that would be attractive to someone to come in and develop it, it could be that impetus that we need to get something rolling on some affordable housing or what we kind of refer to as workforce housing.
And that would entail them coming in and demolishing the old structure themselves?
Could
or
be.
Us trying to...
Yep, it could be a variety of things. The city could actually sell it with some conditions on it if the city owned the property, if they had title to it. NNDC could potentially own it. We could sell it as is to a developer, and then they have to do all of that work. Yeah, a lot of different options there. But I do think a very desirable piece of property.
I personally would say, I think, obviously, like we said, the Phase 1 assessment is very a simple yes to cooperate with the hospital on that. I don't know what we would do with the building itself. I don't think we have we'd be spitballing, I think, if we tried to come up with something. The only reason that I can think of that we would want to own the property would be just to incorporate it back into Wilson Park for additional green space. I don't know what else we would do.
Haunted house.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that would go over very
Social
well.
separation for city employees.
Yeah.
Well, we were able to get a land bank bill passed in the legislature this year, which...
It'd be just sail through.
Well, there was a movement about to make it with a new library. Now, obviously, the board voted against that. But
Yeah.
there was quite a bit of work put into looking at that as a possible place for the library, and we're moving on to a different direction at this point.
Right. Yeah, that's why I say it was considered and has been deemed unsuitable by not just the board, but by every library organization. So I don't feel like that's a worthwhile endeavor for us to pursue on our end. I think that would be working against the library board.
So do we have to express at this moment an interest in the property, or can we simply move forward and express an interest in having the Phase 1 assessment?
I think the hospital would like to know whether or not there is some type of interest on the property, so that way they have an opportunity to continue to market and solicit other opportunities. That way that way they're not necessarily waiting for us to make a final,
Sure.
determination.
Wait until the
I think-
Phase 1's over. Yeah.
Well, I can understand that, but why would we express an interest in something that we don't know what we're getting?
Well, my position on that personally, just to jump in on this one, is you look at the best case scenario on that Phase 1, what is the city itself going to do with it? That's what I'm saying. I don't know what constructive use we would have for it. I don't know how we would marshal the budgetary resources to do something with
Absolutely.
it. So I personally would recommend that we don't express interest in the city owning the property. However, if in the process of the hospital marketing it, if they want to, like Deb talked about, go through some option of having ownership passed on and then sold with stipulations, I don't think that us saying we don't want to own this right now implies that we would never consider any sort of development options in the future. Because I think that should truly be a given, that we would cooperate to try and have something developed there.
Sure.
Yep, I would agree.
Yeah.
I concur.
I just love the idea of having housing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just lovely.
I really like houses.
Okay. Well,
George, you look like you have something to say?
Yeah, with its proximity to Wilson Park, I really think we might be negligent if we didn't express some interest so that we could control what goes in there. And I realize you can probably do that with the proper zoning and stuff, but I just think that the location is something that, is never going to, if they do something else with it, it'll never be available again.
Right.
And and we don't know how the library thing is going to pan out.
And I think you're right, George. I think we should have some control over it. I think that a future council, because at this point it's not going to be us necessarily, I'm comfortable with the levers that a future council would have to stop it if there was something we felt like wasn't a good use of the space. And I think that if there is ever a point where everybody just throws their hands up and says, you know what, it's cursed, nothing's ever going to be here, then saying that we could incorporate it back into Greenwood, or to, not the cemetery. Let's start burying people there. Into Wilson Park would be, I think, is certainly an option. But it would, again, we go back to the fiscal consideration of we have to purchase a building and the land to demolish it and turn it into grass, and that's a tough pill. But again, if there's nothing that ever comes of it, then I think that should be an
Even if you were
option.
given the land, you still got the issue of what do you do with the building.
Yeah, the demolition
Cost of
is,
the
Cost of demolition, ridiculously high.
That's why they didn't do any more demo than they did.
it's difficult.
I guess from a legal standpoint, you would need to know what you want to do with that and have the funds available to do it, to be in a position to make this happen right now. Otherwise, you're just getting a piece of property that you're either going to have to take care of demolition-wise or figure out a way. And we know that councils and boards are not the most efficient way to be realtors. You know that. To find a way to get a developer. Now, if you do the phase one, get it done, then you can help marry a developer with the hospital and have some input into what's going on and who's marrying up to purchase that property. But financially, if you take that property without a plan right now, the cost could be.
Right now, the hospital is getting hit with a fairly healthy property tax bill. You know, they might want to take those monies and invest in demolition.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But if we took it
And be
on,
rid of
we'd be responsible for those property taxes.
Is there anybody that wants to speak against the phase one? And is there anybody that wants to speak in favor of expressing immediate interest in the property? Because otherwise, I think our position, implied position by that is we're open to options. We're open to cooperation, to work with them after the phase one, as we would be with anybody, with any entity locally. Would love to see something go there.
Are you suggesting that we put the grant application in?
Yeah, we can.
We being the city of Chadron with staff time, or?
Yeah, I think, is there any, anybody want to speak against staff time for that?
I just, that's too, I mean, I don't care strongly one way or the other. I guess the question is, why hasn't the board already done it? The hospital board already done it?
Probably similar to why we did it for the state properties too. They know we'll do it.
Yeah, we're familiar with the process. We have all the connections. I don't know what, like Deb said, it's a couple hours. It's not like.
Yeah, and in fairness to the hospital board, I don't think they were actually aware of the opportunities for those brownfield phase one assessment grants out there until we had presented that they are available if they
The new
wanted
interim
to.
CEO has actually created a land committee or a property committee to look at all of the pieces that the hospital owns. And that is a giant step forward from the last time any of us talked to the hospital about utilization of hospital-owned real estate.
Very good. So are we of a consensus then that we should direct staff to notify the hospital that there is not an interest in the property and to work with the hospital to acquire the grants for the phase one assessment?
That's where I'm at.
Okay.
I'm in support of that.
All right, you have all you need, Greg?
Yes.
Okay. That will go ahead and move forward in our agenda this evening.
All right, I move to pay the bills.
I'll second that.
Claims tonight, any questions or discussion on the claims?
I'm sure there's someone out there who can tell me what chemicals we've spent over $3,000 for.
Milo's not looking this way.
The chemicals, $3,000 worth of chemicals, is that
That's, I
aquatic
believe,
center?
some of those are going to be the aquatic center, others are going to be for the water treatment facility. So that's going to be what those are for.
Not uncommon.
Yeah.
Are you implying that we should be doing something different with that, or?
I don't like to see them putting chemicals in the parks and things. I was just on a walk and I saw someone putting the fertilizer in, and I'm just curious, it's a large amount of money that we spend on chemicals.
Right.
So I think they're contaminants, and I worry about the public health.
Any further questions or discussion? Then we have roll call on the claims.
Bannon.
Yes.
Crumpet.
Yes, ma'am.
Werner.
Right.
Welch.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
City manager report this evening.
So I just wanted to just kind of provide everybody with an update on what the situation was regarding the water treatment plant and the code red water restriction that was sent out. So what we had is an issue with what they call variable frequency drive on a pump at the water treatment facility. So it allows the pump to slowly increase its speed and then decrease. And what we had done is went in there and through work with our electrician and our operations staff as well as other folks, went in and basically hardwired that pump in to then run at basically a constant speed. The concerns that we were having with the issue with the pump is the total volume of water in the tank. When we were able to get the water back up and running and pumping up to that tank, we never reached a critical level within that tank, so we were able to maintain proper pressure and water quality throughout the pressure zone. So I would just want to give a big kudos to all of our staff that put in a tremendous amount of time, as well as all of the other consultants and electricians that were able to work diligently on figuring out a solution to get that pump back up and running. We are working with staff to get the VFD fixed, as well as being able to, now that we have a solution in place, to be able to utilize that on a secondary basis, to be able to have that as a backup plan if we have issues with that drive again. So again, big kudos to all of our staff and operators out there to be able to keep the water quality safe for the city of Chadron.
So can it be repaired or will it need replaced?
It can be rebuilt, and what we are looking at is to be able to think of other backup options down the road. So we're starting that contingency planning again. Right now we have a backup in place that is currently functioning now. When we get the new drive in, we'll be able to keep that basically on the shelf. So if that drive goes down again, we'll be able to just hardwire it right back into the system and keep going. So that way we can hopefully avoid any future issues associated with the pumping of water up to that tank. So
I like a full water tank. I do indeed. Questions on that one for the council? Those VFDs are impressive. I mean, Tom has talked at previous meetings about the immense energy savings that we get from using those VFDs, and they're thousands of dollars to purchase new, but the energy savings are immense. It's very impressive stuff. Anything else on your report, Greg?
that's all I have for this evening.
Okay. We will not require resolution 2020-24 as we are all here, and at least apparently well. Council closing comments tonight. I'll begin us, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Just want to reiterate what I spoke about earlier. This coronavirus thing is real. It's a big deal, and we all need to be taking precautions against it, especially knowing that school is canceled has made this real for a lot of people this week. But again, this is not a cause of panic. This is not a cause for fear. This is not a cause to go out and buy as much of everything as possible as you can and max out your credit card just because you want to have everything. I encourage people to be community-minded at this time, to support one another, check on your neighbors in a safe way, volunteer safely where you can, donate safely where you can, so that we all come through this thing in the best shape possible. Keith?
Don't do what we're doing. We're too close to each other. I really don't have anything important to say, but in following with Florida's legislature, I would like to go ahead and declare myself champion of all the NCAA basketball brackets. So
I will second
sorry for all you people who did not win this year.
I would like to compliment the high school drama department. Went to the musical here a couple of Saturdays ago, and I didn't think I could enjoy Beauty and the Beast, but it was very nice. They did a fine job. And also would like to congratulate Hope Garcia for ending her probationary period at the fire department. we can't get along without the fine volunteers that we have on the fire department, and it's good to see that we're continuing to grow new members.
All right. I'd like to reiterate and support what Mayor Bannon said about the COVID-19. We're all in this together, and let's do what we can to protect our friends, our family, and our neighbors. Those who are more vulnerable need our help. I'd like to encourage everyone to social distance, wash your hands, avoid gatherings of more than 10 people. We're taking these precautions now so that we don't overwhelm our medical services and professionals, and to protect the vulnerable. So thank you, everyone, for doing your part in keeping us all healthy.
Well, I was glad to hear that we were able to remove item number G from the agenda tonight, and maybe have a better ending than the lien being imposed despite being ostracized by Mayor Bannon. So,
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
May we have roll call on the motion to adjourn?
Bannon.
Yes.
Crowfoot.
Yes, ma'am.
Werner.
Aye.
Welch.
Yes.
Klein.
yes.
We are adjourned at 6:57.